Okay, I like to do my rants on things that I find, like hidden gems, any movies that I find on streaming services that maybe you guys haven't heard of. Well, I found a show the other day that honestly, I was surprised that isn't getting more attention. So I'm going to try and see if maybe this little rant will help get it some attention. It's called Clean Slate, and it stars the one and only George Wallace and the one and only Laverne Cox. And if you're not familiar with those names, I have to admit, I didn't really know who George Wallace was. I had to look him up, but I remember being in Las Vegas for when I go to CES, and yeah, I've got a lot of videos on those. But I've often seen billboards with George Wallace's face on them, so he's a very huge comedian, headliner style comedian, and so he's very well done in this thing. And when I looked at the opening, apparently he helped create this show. So I sort of get the feeling like, hey, he wanted to do a show like this. And before I get to the plot, I'll get to who Laverne Cox is. Laverne Cox is a transgender actor who has been in, actually I'm not sure if I'm using the right gender-specific thing for that, but anyway. So if you've seen the show Orange is the New Black, Laverne Cox had a very prominent role on that, and I think actually that show really put transgenderism in the spotlight in a very good way, and I kind of think that it's probably good that we're having a show like this. So here's the premise of the thing. This Clean Slate takes place in, I think it's just Mobile, Alabama, and I actually think that is an actual place in Alabama, and I don't know whether they have actually shot it there, but George Wallace's character is a guy who owns a car wash, and he's obviously owned this car wash for many years. He's very good at what he does, and apparently he makes quite a good living off it, or at least enough living so he can live comfortably. And one day he gets an email from his son and named Desmond, and Desmond is going to come and visit. But when he answers the door, he's met by Desiree. So you can obviously see what has happened. His son, went under gender reassignment. Oh man, this is the part where I just don't even know the proper terms for it, but Desmond is now Desiree and is now back in his life. So, as you can see, I'm sort of ignorant as far as the transgender issues go, so I want to watch this show, because I want to see this stuff being talked about. I want to see the issues being raised here. I have to admit, when I first watched the show, George Wallace's character takes it somewhat well. This could have been in an episode in which George Wallace's character could have slammed the door in her face. That could have happened on the very first episode. And then the entire first episode is him finally learning to open the door at the end. This character could have been Archie Bunker, essentially, is what I'm thinking. But kind of isn't. I think the worst thing that this character did on the first episode was call Desiree Desmond, which I have to admit, you can tell he does that deliberately, and he does it to very much offend her. Or I'm not sure if I'm using the correct pronoun there for Laverne Cox's character. But I really felt like, oh my gosh, this is a show that is actually kind of dealing with this, and it's dealing with this in Alabama, and it's dealing with this with pretty much mostly African-American population. African-American church-going population, which I actually really liked the fact that they had the setting. There is one white character, or actually two of them in this thing, one main one at least. I can't remember the actor's name, but basically in George Wallace's car wash, there's this one guy who works there. I think his name is Mac, and he has a daughter named Opal. And Opal's a really great character. Opal is this very much a overachiever type personality, and she's like 10 years old or something like that. And I really like her character. I actually think that there's a lot you could do with this character. And I like the fact that these characters are distinct enough so they feel unique, and they're not just sort of convention character 1, convention character 2, convention character 3. They're not like, actually, you know what? I suddenly realized the show bears a strong resemblance to another show called, I think it's like Shifting Gears or Changing Gears. It stars Tim Allen and Kat Dennings. But the problem is that show is not good. Clean Slate is good. I actually like the way the show is going. In fact, there's something that's very old-fashioned about this show. I really felt like, when I was watching it, I felt like I was watching a show that was not in our decade. I was watching a show that was, say, from the 70s or 80s and was really just beginning to deal with issues of race and gender in them. And I actually believe that this show was produced by Norman Lear, and which I thought, that's strange. I couldn't remember if he was alive or dead, or I could have sworn that I had just heard he passed away, but I could be wrong on that. I could be getting the name wrong. But Norman Lear's name is on this show, and I went like, oh, shoot. This is Norman Lear's show. So if you're not familiar with Norman Lear, he did a lot of shows like, say, All in the Family or other type shows that really helped pave the way for moderns. Modern day sitcoms don't really exist, do they? So it's kind of like, yeah, I know. So that's kind of what I like about this show, is it feels like, okay, this would have been a show that you would have done in the past, but it has modern day sensibilities so that the plot doesn't drag, and I don't really feel like, okay, it's not like one of those situation comedies that you watch where you go like, I've seen this situation on another comedy and they did it better there, or one of those things. So it doesn't feel derivative, is what I like about it. It does remind me of something that, say, Tyler Perry would do. And I would have to say, yeah. I'm just gonna have to say that. I don't know if I'm the only one that's saying that. Maybe it's like, if you wanna leave a comment that says, sure, a white guy would think that everything that stars mostly black people is done by Tyler Perry. Yeah, maybe I'm like one of those guys that looks at something animated and just assumes it's Disney. If you wanna leave a comment like that, please be nice. I'm really trying to understand a lot of things because I don't really understand a lot of things. And watching this show actually helps me understand a lot of these things that are going on. I really like how Desiree deals with a lot of these issues in their life. I'm going to assume that they have their pronouns. And there's one episode recently where Desiree goes back to church, and I like how they show how the pastor is responding to it, because I feel like it is a realistic reaction of this thing. I don't like necessarily the response here, because yeah, it is done in such a way that's like, yeah, that's kind of questionable. And there's a lot of things that I have to admit are kind of like, you know, you can tell that George Wallace doesn't really know how to respond to this whole new situation, but you can tell that he's trying. And that I really like about that. And you sense that his character is a really loving and good man, and that he's going to do what's best for Desiree. And I think that's kind of cool. And the fact that, remember how there's that character named Mac and his daughter Opal, I can tell that he's really doing the best for his kid. And they show that Mac has had a criminal record, that he has actually been in prison before, which is something that I really like. They show that he has sort of come out of that lifestyle, and he's trying to be a good dad. And I actually really like that. I think that there's something to that, because normally when you see male figures on television that have done bad things, it's like they stay that bad forever. And I'm kind of like going like, no, show somebody who has gone through that dark tunnel and is coming out the other side. And that's what I think they're really going for. So yeah, maybe that's why they call the show Clean Slate, because it really deals with this idea that, hey, can we take what is past and just let it go? And it's a pretty good message, I have to admit. This show kind of, I was just kind of watching it to see if it was decent, see if I could rant about it, but I can really only say good things about it. I will have to say, like, is it a perfect show? Of course it's not. It's not perfect. It's pretty much designed for the consumption. It is designed as comfort food. Could it be more intelligent than that? I actually believe it can. I think this show has I can't really judge a show by just watching its first few episodes. It takes often a full season before a show gets its steam and before they realize what it is. I don't know if this show realizes what it is very early, but they're getting their footing. And I will be very happy to watch episodes of Clean Slate, and so should you. Watch Clean Slate right now. It's on Prime. I don't know if it started there, but I seem to have just found it there. So there it is. Anyway, this has been Mark Rollins from the Geek Church. I'm signing off.